It seems to me that the government should have worked with them in order to get them to contribute to the resolution of this problem before they were allowed to develop in our area.
I agree, and that is an issue.
Question back here. Please stand up.
Okay, so you're saying the pipeline is not the solution, and that there's another solution, I understand. So my question is, if we're going to go and research another solution, how long is that going to take when we already have a solution that's coming? And I know, yes, it's coming for 20 years. However, the plan is for 2022, and processes are in place. So how long is it going to take to find another solution? Will that delay the current solution that's in place? Like, we want clean water now, it's going to take time, so what's your timeline? My timeline was 20 years ago. But when the Water Master Plan came out, we had short-term and long-term solutions that did not involve the pipeline. That was filtration. And that was going to take 1 to 2 years. And that wasn't my Part 2 order that stopped any of that happening. That was our council who said, no, it's too expensive. And now we have a pipeline with not enough water coming as our solution that is going to cost over $16 million. And so I know that there have been people that have said, you need to come up with a solution. I don't. I never have. I am not an expert. I'm not a water expert. Never claimed to be. But I expect our municipality to at least work with, at this point, independent experts in order to find a solution for us. And so I don't know the answer to that. I would assume it would take a couple of years.
I've got 3 questions, and that's all I can hold in my head at one time. So it's this gentleman here, this lady over here, and then I'll take more after that. We'll take more, but I won't hold the time.
How you doing? My question is 2 parts. I know you've been living here for 20 years. I'm sure there's people that have been living here a lot longer. 47. Okay? So, what's to say? It's 20 years for you, 47 for some others. The council that we have intact now, which, from what I understand from their last meeting, don't live in town. They live all outside of town. Now, I see we do have an attorney at the table here. What I say is, if you don't hit them where it hurts, they're not going to react. The only way to make them react is for that gentleman there to hit him where it hurts. So you're saying to me it's going to take $16 million. Now, from the last council meeting, I heard that they're building a $20 million city hall. Am I correct? So take the $20 million that they're building there, knock it down, and put it into the water system. But the only person that can do this is that gentleman right there.
Off as I am, that the municipality has been withholding information from us. Why have they let this happen to us? We are tax-paying residents, as you said, we're paying the same amount of money for the water. It pisses me off, and I know you don't have the answer, but I want to know why. I really do want to know why they've let this continue and to go on, and to just let us all be sheep that they lead along with some stupid tagline that they want us to buy into. And what that guy just said about the town hall, that was actually kibosh to put down, and the price tag was $16 million. I know for a fact, so why couldn't we put the money towards getting us adequate water, like, immediately? Not in 3 years, 2 years, whatever, like now. And they should be doing something in our homes, or doing something to offset the cost that we have to pay to get our water filtered, because I did that and had to change my filters every month, and they looked that color. It was disgusting, and it cost a lot of money to do that. So I think that we should be compensated immediately by the municipality.
Okay. I just want to notice we're starting to shift from asking questions to saying there's certain things we want to see happen. And that's the next, and that's coming next. And we're going there soon, but I'm going to check if there's more questions.
Hi everyone, I'm a newcomer to Tottenham, and this is completely brand new to me. And to be honest with you, I found out about our issue at the Christmas parade when I walked into one of Classique espresso shop, and I saw this. Tottenham's troubled water. Are you kidding me? Never heard there were issues. And tonight I'm here because this was handed out at the Christmas parade. It's amazing. Thank you guys. I would never have known that this is happening had there not been this information that has been passed around. So, Nancy, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Earlier on, you said Honda got a pipeline. And Honda has good water. So, who has determined that that water is satisfactory according to the levels of testing?
That actually comes, I don't know about independently, whether they test it on their own, but that actually is tested through Collingwood and through, because it comes straight from Collingwood. So the water from the Collingwood filtration plant, numbers, I'm not sure what the THM numbers are there. I know that they're between 30 and 40 once they hit Alliston. And so they have their own water reports that are available to us. So that's what determines what Honda gets, is the Collingwood filtration plant. Does that make sense? No, here's the thing with that one. Sorry, I got carried away there. Because they don't have a big mix with all of the wells. There's 6 wells in Alliston. Their water is mixed with 1 well. Alliston is supplemented by Collingwood water. They use their 6 wells. And then the issue becomes, okay, it's no longer just Collingwood water we get from that pipeline. We can say pipeline all we want, but we're getting a mix of well water that Alliston never wanted, and that is mixed with Collingwood water, and then there's just not enough of that. So that if we get even 50% of that mix of water, that's not adequate as far as I'm concerned. After decades of not having the same amount. And when I say 2 decades, because that's when the pipeline went in, was in the year 2000. And so for 20 years, going on 20 years now, we have had terrible water compared to the rest of New Tecumseth.
Is it okay if I take 2 more questions and then we go to the action plan? Is that okay? Right here.
I have a concern about our children and our seniors. To my understanding, my kids don't go to school anymore, but there should be signs about not drinking water in the schools. And as a parent, you should be raising hell.
Can I just speak to that? And so I have been in conversations with the Catholic and the public school boards, who don't appear to care if our water levels if our levels are not meeting the guidelines of the Safe Drinking Water Act. They've been told, they said, the municipality says it's safe, and that's all there is. So there are water fill stations in all of our schools. I know the high school, the kids there are well aware, they don't touch that water because it's not filtered. It's an illusion by saying, go fill up your jugs at that water station. There's no filtration in any of our schools at these water fill stations, and there's no filtration at the
I just wondered if you know the health risks involved, THM?
Yes, there are several of them, including, as I said, there's bladder cancer, kidney and liver disease and cancer. Yeah, thank you, Mike. Sir, miscarriage and stillbirth. And so we were told in April from the medical officer that it's long-term, don't worry. However, if a pregnant woman can miscarry or have stillbirth because of high levels of trihalomethanes, that's 9 months. That's not 70 years. So I would assume that there are immediate risks as well that are not being looked at or acknowledged by anybody. According to the Safe Drinking Water Act, it is responsibility. It goes through the people who look after our water, Public Works, and then it goes through to council and mayor, and then it goes through to the medical officer of public health. He knows the levels. He knows the guidelines have been exceeded. Our mayor knows the guidelines have been exceeded. They know that the water has not been deemed safe for years. They know that there's exceedances. And in the Safe Drinking Water Act, it says that at that point, when levels are exceeded in anything, aesthetic or not, the public has a right to know. And never once have we been alerted to the issue of levels of trihalomethanes. In Wawa, found out through the Star that they had high levels in 2016, I think it was. They had a public advisory, and they haven't lifted it yet, even though they're below 100. And yet not one of us, as far as I can tell in 4 years of doing this, has ever been notified by our town or the medical officer of health about these issues with our water.
Are the grants available from the provincial or federal government that could help the town fix our water or subsidize residents?
Excellent question. So I'll try and put that one together. So wanting to know if there is assistance, money from the province or the federal government for water issues. Yes, there is. And in 2016, I asked our council what we could do to try and ask for assistance. And I was met with blank stares. And so knowing that, originally, federal government looked after water across Canada. They then said, this is expensive, let's put it onto the province. Province said the same thing, they dumped it onto municipalities. Clean water is an expensive, it's an expensive, what is it? Investment, thank you, Mike. I need people to finish my sentences. And so it's pretty important that the federal and the provincial government assist us with cash in order to get clean water.
You may have more questions, and Nancy and Jessica and Cheryl and others will be here to stay afterwards and answer your questions. But I want to know if it's okay if we talk now about what the demands are in response to the situation, we talk about the action plan. Is that okay? Right, so many heads nodding. Okay, so if you take this brochure we gave you, and you open it up, and it says, the results are in, it's time to take action. If anybody doesn't have one of these, put your hand up and somebody will bring you one. So, I'm not going to read it to you, I'm going to kind of summarize it. I'm going to describe all four of them briefly, and then I'm going to ask who supports them. So the first is to develop a comprehensive plan to remediate the THMs, remediate the iron levels, and establish safe maximum levels for chlorination. Because as Nancy said to us, your water is being chlorinated at 10 times the level of other communities. So the first thing is to clean the water here now and do a comprehensive solution, which Nancy said is some form of filtration and storage. The second is to designate an independent authority to supervise the testing. Because as they were describing to you, in the past 15 years, your municipality has not been using the proper sampling methods. So the THM levels have not been accurately reported because of that. They've been high, they've been too high, but they still have not been accurately reported. So Tottenham Water says we need to have an independent authority to conduct the testing. The third one, and this connects partly to your question, and connects to the concerns that many people have, which is to request that Health Canada and the Public Health Agency of Canada conduct an epidemiological study. That's a long-term study to find out what have been the potential health impacts of people being exposed to THMs, iron, chlorine, and other potential contaminants. In addition, for a study to look into what are the root causes of of your water's contamination. Finally, and this I think comes to a comment somebody made, and I can't remember who said it, I apologize, which is why did this happen? Convene an independent inquiry to examine how THM, iron, and chlorine levels could continue in your water from 2003 to the present without any remediation. To hold accountable those who were responsible, determine who should have been responsible for remediation, hold them accountable, and, as somebody said in terms of compensation, determine the financial impact to Tottenham residents of mitigating their exposure and recommend appropriate compensation. I'm going to ask it this way. How many people support the demand that there be a comprehensive plan to clean the water at source? Hands up. Looks pretty big to me. How many support the demand that there be an independent authority to conduct the sampling and testing of the water going forward? How many agree that Health Canada should conduct a health study to find out what the community's potential exposure has been? By the way, folks, if you haven't seen the movie Dark Waters, go see it. You see it every day. And finally, do you support an independent inquiry to examine how this situation could last for so long and not be addressed by the authority? So that looks like a pretty strong mandate to me. These are the demands. How do we win these demands? There's two parts to this. I'm going to speak very briefly about one part, then I'm going to introduce David Donnelly from Donnelly Law. You are, I think, as you realize, just by being here and by looking at the work of Tottenham Water, you're going to need to demand of your politicians that they protect the public interest and that they act on your demands. I'm from out of town, but from talking to people and hearing what I've heard here and reading what I've read in the Toronto Star, they haven't fulfilled their responsibility. And by asking them to fulfill the responsibility again, they may not do that. You're going to have to pressure them to do that. You're going to have to talk to your politicians. You're going to have to make demands of them. You're going to have to put pressure on them to do that. There are different ways to do that. We're going to talk in a little bit more detail about that later. And inside of that campaign to put pressure on the politicians to do what you want to protect the public interest, there is a legal strategy. And we're going to invite David Donnelly right now to speak to that. And after he's presented, we'll have another opportunity for questions and answers. Is that okay? Yep. Still the same meeting? All right. David.
When Benjamin Franklin was appointed as the ambassador to the French court just after the American Revolution, he was often teased by the English ambassador who happened to be a lord. One day when they were standing around waiting for their audience with the king, the English ambassador approached Ambassador Franklin, and he was surrounded by a group of French courtiers. The English lord said to Benjamin Franklin, "You know, Ambassador Franklin, I keep a picture of your General George Washington on the inside door of my servant's outhouse." Ambassador Franklin looked at the English lord and said, "Why, that's appropriate. Nothing makes an Englishman ship faster than the sight of General George Washington. Now, coming up here tonight to Tottenham, I say that joke needs to be adjusted a little bit. I say, nothing makes a municipal councillor in Tottenham ship faster than the sight of Nancy McBride and Cheryl Ann. Now, you've asked a lawyer to come up here and to describe a legal strategy. And you've also asked me to be brief. There are only two problems with that. The first is, the first rule of the litigation club is that we don't talk about the litigation club. And the second problem is that in asking a lawyer to be brief, because of our great egos, that's like telling Babe Ruth to bunt. However, I'll do my best. Now, the first thing you need to know about me is that I've been working as a lawyer for over 20 years in Ontario, working almost exclusively with citizens groups, fighting to save the Oak Ridges Moraine, the Greenbelt. But I also have the pleasure and misfortune to represent the Safe Drinking Water Coalition at the Wellington Commission of Inquiry. Sadly, this is not the first community that I've been before that has suffered through water tragedies. In that case, it took years to establish some of the claims for compensation for the illness and loss of business that they suffered in Wellington. So we have been down this road before. You're obviously at the beginning of the stages of your investigation. The circumstances clearly are different. But in Ontario, we do not take care of our own when it comes to drinking water. And let me ask you a question. If there was a hole burst in the roof tonight of the local hockey rink, how long do you think it would take to get that roof repaired? Yeah, it'd be a couple of hours, right? And yet some of you people have been waiting years, if not decades, to get answers to what are obvious water problems. The first file that I ever worked on when I was executive director of the Public Environmental Defense Fund involved a number of young men who had sprayed herbicide in New Brunswick for NV Power. The product that they were spraying was dioxin, in fact, the most lethal kind, dioxin 2,4,5-T, which is also known as Agent Orange. Those men took decades to sue Dow Chemical. They were ultimately successful, but it took most of the rest of their lives to do so. So in Canada, we have not taken water quality seriously enough. You can go to almost any reserve in Northern Ontario tonight and there will be a boil water advisory in effect. So if you think that this is some kind of strange situation here and that you've got this all wrong and it must be in your head, there are too many places in Ontario where water is not being treated as the absolutely essential, life-giving source that it is. So sadly, there is nothing unusual about what is happening in Tottenham. Now, I read the Toronto Star article in which one of the respondents to your survey said that he or she panics when they draw water for the bath. Can you imagine living in a house or in a community when you are so worried about bathing your own child because the people that should be accountable are not giving you the confidence in the water that you have to drink and in which you bathe? Now, the question that I have to ask as counsel to Tottenham Water is this: are trihalomethanes a problem? Well, if you go back in history to 1974, trihalomethanes were the subject of the first drinking water regulations issued after the passage of the Safe Drinking Water Act in the United States of America, and that was 1974. So this has been a problem that's been around for a long time. This hasn't snuck up on anyone. Now, if you do basic research online, even Wikipedia will tell you that trihalomethanes are forms of byproduct, primarily when chlorine is used to disinfect drinking water. The result of this disinfectant is the reaction of chlorine or bromide with organic matter present in the water being treated. Okay, fair enough. But then it goes on to say, The THMs produced have been associated through epidemiological studies with some adverse health effects. So I want you to freeze that in your mind and try and remember that throughout the rest of the presentation. The THMs have been associated with adverse health effects. Now there are other concerns in Tottenham. You've heard about bromide, you've heard about iron. There's a problem with sodium, and the fact that the reporting that's required when sodium levels get elevated has not happened with health officials. This is an additional concern. But you've heard already that the standard is 100 unograms per parts per billion. Okay? Now the first thing I want to say about that is thank God for the Toronto Star and their reporting. I can tell you that the Oak Ridges moraine being protected was a direct result of that newspaper taking an interest in what was going on with the drinking water of people living on the Oak Ridges moraine. Thanks to the Toronto Star, we now have it out in the light of day, but there's been a problem with trihalomethanes in your drinking water every year. It's been as high as 143 parts per billion. And that from 2005 to 2015, there was a persistent problem. Every single year there was an exceedance. And the only reason why there hasn't been a prosecution is because the testing wasn't done the right way to show 4 quarterly reports. The law in the province of Ontario says not that if you have an exceedance of 100, there can be a prosecution. You have to have 4 tests each year that shows an average of over 100. If you can't get to that average, you don't have the 4 tests. And for Tottenham, for some reason, there hasn't been the quarterly testing. And so nothing can be done, at least nothing can be done at this point, about those historic exceedances. And that is a shame. What's the standard in Quebec? It's 80 parts per billion. And the question I have is, when something is significantly higher, like 100 versus 80, there must be a reason. But so far, no one has come and explained why 100 is appropriate in Ontario, but the reduced amount of 80 is appropriate in Quebec. Now, I like baseball, tie goes to the runner, right? So in Ontario, it's 100, in Quebec, it's 80. What is it in the United States of America? It's 80 parts per billion, right? So the question you have to ask yourself is, why is it that here in Ontario, and specifically in Tottenham, is our exceedance level greater than the people in Quebec and the United States? Are we somehow less valuable? Are we somehow more tolerant of this particular toxin? I don't think so. Now, when I was doing the research to come here and speak tonight, it dawned on me that what's happening here has many parallels as what's happened in Flint. Flint, we were all told, was a problem with leaded water, and it's true that that was what it became. But where it started was a problem when water consultants went in and said, you have a problem with your water, you need to disinfect it. And you did disinfect it, which led to the introduction of trihalomethanes. Something presenters should never do. I'm going to read, but I can't get this stuff straight unless I read it to you. A Houston-based firm was hired by a Flint emergency manager to prepare its water treatment plant to produce drinking water from the Flint River starting in April 2014. Less than a year later, a different emergency manager hired Veolia to study the city's water quality issues after high levels of disinfectant byproducts put in the city by the city in violation of the Safe Drinking Water Act. Veolia was the only company to respond to Flint's solicitation of a proposal for a water quality consultant after it found itself in violation of the Safe Drinking Water Act in early 2015 for excess total trihalomethanes. In an initial assessment, the company assured residents that city water was safe to drink despite the problems with sediment and discoloration. In other words, is the problem of trihalomethanes in your water simply the canary in the coal mine? Is this an indicator of something worse, something more insidious? In the case of Flint, Michigan, it started with a trihalomethane problem and it led to something far greater. So if you have confidence that you're getting straight answers and that this problem has been solved through aeration, then I don't think any of you would be here tonight. What I'm here to suggest is there could be a far greater problem lurking below the surface of this trihalomethane problem. Now, the steps that you need to take to get to court. The first step is to get crackerjack investigators and community organizers, and the good news is you've already done that, haven't you? Okay. The second thing you need to do is to hire a toxicologist who looks at the water that's actually coming out of your taps. One of the problems that you have up here is the testing is done so far from the place where you actually get your water, we may actually not know what it is that you're drinking. So what you need are tests of the water that's coming out of the tap. That's done by a water tech. It's not difficult to do, and it's not particularly expensive. Those results of what's actually in your drinking water, the stuff you're actually drinking, goes to the toxicologist. The toxicologist is a scientist who has a medical health background, and they tell you whether your drinking water could or is causing an adverse human health effect. It's an important key phrase. The second, after the toxicologist, is an epidemiologist, and that is someone who studies the incidence of cancers and other illnesses as a result of being exposed to the kind of water that you're being exposed to. Now, through a past life of doing an epidemiological study in the Upper Beaches in Toronto, I learned that the hospitals in Southern Ontario, when they admit you, they take your address. And then if you have certain types of cancers or other illnesses, they actually track you on a database in terms of where you're from, where you live. So as a matter of fact, the province of Ontario, the Ministry of Health, probably already knows whether there's a concern here with certain types of cancers that would be a result of exposure to unsafe drinking water. Well, those answers should be disclosed now. I've read the media, people are saying, don't worry, trust us. Well, don't trust, verify. That information should be produced immediately. But at the end of the day, the toxicologist working with the water tech and working with the epidemiologist will be able to give you a portrait of whether, in fact, you have been exposed to a toxin, whether that toxin has made some of you ill, and if so, then it's time to take court action. In the province of Ontario, there are two streams of action you can take. There's what we call quasi-criminal, which is the prosecution route, or there's the civil route. I will spend the briefest moments outlining the two. In Ontario's Environmental Protection Act, it says, subject to subsection 2, but despite any other provision of this act or regulation, a person shall not discharge a contaminant or cause or permit the discharge of contaminant into the natural environment if the discharge causes or may cause an adverse effect. In section 20 of the Ontario Safe Drinking Water Act, it says, no person shall cause or permit anything to enter the drinking water system if it could result in A, a drinking water health hazard, B, a contravention of the prescribed standard, or C, interference with the normal operation of the system. In other words, it's the law in the province of Ontario that you can't put anything into water, whether it's a lake or your drinking water, that would cause it.